Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast ahead of Gameweek 15 as our Christmas preparation steps up a gear. My name is Joe.
My name is Az.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome everyone as we look ahead to the Tuesday to Thursday's midweek matches, or aka Gameweek 15. It's kind of snuck in between 14 and 16 as it usually does, but very quickly and beyond. We're looking ahead to that and beyond that, hopefully, if our planning goes well. So Az, what else is coming up in the show?
Well, we are going to talk about the people who are dismounting. So who are people replacing Mason Mount with? I got ahead of the curve somehow on that and got rid of him ages ago when I thought he was still quite a good option. So blind luck, but now it seems he's being sold in droves. We're going to go back to Spurs again because we've got the resident Spurs expert on the show. So we'll see what she has to say about the resurgence of Tottenham. And then we're going to be talking about festive rotation. So talking about benches. Sam's got a very strong bench and it's causing her problems, but might it actually be in her favour as we go over Christmas when there's lots of rotation and injuries and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to start by taking a look back over last week, what happened in our game weeks, and then it's Sam's turn at the end of the show to pick a differential.
Ooh, exciting now. And also, when we come to the differential section, the Scoutcast is doing very well. As you've been doing very well. FPL Families Lee has been doing very well.
A lot of pressure.
Tom was on a couple of weeks ago. Matt Doherty doing very well. Yeah, you said the word there. Pressure's on now, Sam. So we'll come to that later. So plenty of build up there. So it's going to be momentous. We're on a roll for these differential picks. And we won't mention that I picked Neil Maupay about 5 weeks ago. Although he did get one goal. Let's move on to very quickly look at Game Week 14 as you are top of the pile, 60 points. Aubameyang, the penalty taker, the penalty retaker star. And who came in for you this week and who left? I hadn't looked at your moves.
Oh, it's been a while since I was top of the pile. God. I'm normally firmly at the bottom. So, yeah, it's nice to finally have had a good week. It was a good week. I mean, I did Abraham to Ings. I don't really want to be holding a player like Abraham. There's just too much doubt over him. Lampard said he was definitely out of that game. He's now saying he's got a chance to play against Villa, but he needs to get outside and do some work or something. It's like he's just been.
They said he hasn't seen him outside yet. Well, that sounds good. He's got to play tomorrow.
Yeah. Not too sure about that. And I thought with Ings against Watford and then Norwich in the next game, it just seemed too easy to do that. So yeah, I was happy with that move. That got me sort of 9 points. But I mean, the big star of my game week was Aubameyang, who I've held on, oh my God, for so long. And he's been just so bad. And yeah, and then I was watching the match and, when he saved the penalty, I just thought, oh, that's typical.
Isn't it ironic? Last week we were talking about stubbornness and about, hanging on to players too long perhaps and those kinds of things. Now, hey presto, chuck all that out the window, and patience is back being a virtue, and that you kept him. And I don't own Aubameyang, but I was really pleased for you, and all the other Aubameyang owners, because I just thought, God, if you kept him that long, well done. You need that.
And I tell you what, though, if Abraham hadn't got injured, I was half tempted because we were talking about it last week to do the Aubameyang to Jesus move. I was thinking about it, and then Abraham got injured, and I was like, I probably won't. It'd have to be for a hit now. It doesn't seem very logical before Norwich, but yeah, I was thinking about taking him out, but I'm glad I did stick with him because if I'd taken him out and he got 13 points, I would have been absolutely devastated.
I've done that before. About 3 years ago, I got Firmino out before he got a brace, and the player I got in instead of him, Lallana, got subbed off injured. And it was it's one of the worst things in FPL when you get out, you take a player out, the player you get in blanks, and the player that taken out scores a brace. Worse still, a hat trick.
Infuriating.
Infuriating. That's one of the worst.
Lucky that didn't happen to me. But yeah, I mean, got the captaincy pick wrong, but didn't punish me too much. I mean, really, it was a good week because I didn't really get punished too much. Like players like Pulisic and Mount and Kane and all these kind of guys didn't really do that much, and my players all did all right. So yeah, pretty happy with 60
I would be as well. So Sam, your next 49 points. I say down to 14,000. So I wish I was down to 14,000. And obviously Alexander Arnold and KDB the stars, and you got your captaincy right with Vardy. Tell us a bit about your game week.
It was one of those weeks this week where right from the get-go I kind of thought it might not go my way. The Abraham news threw a spanner in the works completely, because I was planning to roll transfers so that I'd have 2 going into this kind of double game week in a week period, with 15 and 16, and I still wanted to do that, and I kind of felt that Frank didn't give me enough information about how long Tammy's injury was going to be, so I didn't want to get him out and then not be able to bring him back in again. So I held him, thought I'll just bench him and I'll play Tomori. They've got West Ham. He's probably going to get a clean sheet, and then he didn't. And I was really worried, actually, not having any Chelsea attack. But that... I don't know what happened to Chelsea. They look really tired to me in that game. They look like they all need a rest. Too many games in quick succession, which doesn't bode well given they've got another game to play midweek. But yeah, KDB, I still think that he's absolutely essential, even though Man City are playing not great at the moment. He is the one that is always up there, doing something, it seems to me. So he's worth the money for me.
Lovely goal on it as well.
Yeah, absolute worldie. So that was really nice. And it's nice to have Trent return as well, because for the last couple of weeks I've been pondering, so I still have my first wild card left. I've been pondering when I used that during Liverpool's blank in 18, whether I switch back from Trent to Robbo, because it's been Robertson that's been kind of doing the business really. But actually, I think I saw enough from Trent this week that makes me think that they are going to about level out over the course of the season. So I'll probably stick with Trent. Vardy's been my captain now for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of glorious points returns from him. So, I can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, I mean, the Alexander-Arnold as well. It's really... I mean, because we've seen him deliver those corners and not get anything. But yeah, I mean... Getting the free kick and the corner and the same header, basically. Yeah. Amazing. And yeah, they were talking on Match of the Day afterwards. Just the way he takes those corners, the whip on it is amazing.
Just annoying he didn't keep a clean sheet as well, but can't ask for everything, I suppose.
They never do.
No. That's true.
They never do. So I am bottom of the pile here, 46 points, but I took a hit. And people who watch the Scoutcast and listen to us regularly will know that I don't tend to take many hits. I tend to play it a bit safe, but just every now and again I do something a bit odd. And so I was sick of Otamendi, so I got Matt Target in. But unfortunately benched him, and he got 7 points. Oh. As an enabler, I got a young man, I don't know if you've heard of him, Harold Kane. At Spurs, so I got
defensive midfielder, Harry Kane.
Young defensive midfielder. He's got a goal in him. He's got a couple of golden boots in him as well. So I thought I'd give him a go. Partly because not many people were talking about him, and I saw a potential opportunity, and I'm going to give him 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, people weren't talking about him because he's rubbish, Joe.
Don't say that.
Harry Kane,
my
beloved.
He's not worth 10.9.
Well, I thought he's worth more, and I thought bargain. I'll have a bit.
I think so too, Joe. I agree.
And I found basically
you're biased.
I needed to get rid of Otamendi, and I found myself with enough money to upgrade Abraham to Harry Kane. I thought give it a go, but. Yeah, so I'm going to give him 3 weeks. I also like him because he's got an exit plan, and I always like to have an exit plan because I just assume everything I do is going to go wrong. And so
you know what, that has actually been one of the few good things about owning Aubameyang is that that when you do eventually get sick of him, you can just move him to pretty much anyone. It is a big thing.
And Harry Kane's in that price bracket as well now. Harry Kane's not the old 12 million Harry Kane playing a centre defence. That he has been, and there is extra routes. Yes, there is Aubameyang. I also like the move in 3 or 4 weeks for him to Rashford, and then upgrading one of my midfielders to Dele Alli, who I've also had my eye on. So I'm quite keen on that as well. So there's exit routes there, but I just thought give him a go. The fixtures look sort of Spurs penalty win kind of fixtures. They didn't look sort of Dele Alli weaving magic type of fixtures, but we shall see. And I'm not going to take a hit this week. I'm going to do nothing this week. So in tribute to my hit, I'm going to do nothing again. So let's move on to some rough with the smooth. So my move was, I'm going to say rough, even though I'm going to try and spin it as being smooth, but it was rough. As we have some more rough with the smooths. Tell us about
We
it. I
do,
think Virgil van Dijk's going to figure here.
Yeah, we've got a couple of bad ones, I think, this week. And actually, last week I remember it was quite smooth, focused. You know, lots of people seem to have good weeks last week. This week, I think a lot of people had some pretty bad weeks. So it shows how quickly it can turn around. But I mean, the big one. I mean, if anyone watches the FPL show and knows Jules Breach, you'll know she's doing really well this season. I think she's in the top 20,000 or something. And she's held Van Dijk for ages, been getting 2 points of him pretty much every week. She decided she'd had enough of all that, so she decided to bench him. And of course, he scored 2 goals. I mean, I'm sorry, Jules, I can't understand that against Brighton.
And you're always going to remember when you bench 2 defender goals. Yeah. Like if do you remember Ryan Shawcross at Stoke? I remember he did the same as well. And the other guy as well, his name escapes me. Stoke centre back, Robert Huth.
Huth.
And you always remember getting them. And if you bench one,
I benched Luca Dean last season. I think got like 16, 17 points. Yeah. It does hurt.
We injured this season as well.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Not great. Yeah. So that's probably the worst one to put. I mean, Red Lightning, he transferred out of Van Dijk and bought in Aurier. So I mean, that's
timing.
Is that Schools have still got him?
Yeah, I guess that is worse, isn't it? I couldn't really decide what was worse, selling or benching, but yeah, probably selling.
Definitely,
yeah. Tizza as well also sold Van Dijk, and again I think that follows on from last week. I talk about patience. These people just had enough of him and punished in the worst possible way. I like this one, Maximus Bonimus Pointmus, great name. He made a great transfer. He bought in Mousse, 5 million Mousse, paying for Sheffield United. Good. Benched him.
Oh right. Oh. Well, you know, he's halfway there.
Yeah, he nearly there. Yeah. A couple more. La Roja, he took a -8. This is pretty bad. He took out Aubameyang.
Ouch.
He took out Yarmolenko. Fair enough. Okay. And he took out Aaron Creswell.
Oh, no.
He got 14 points. Gosh. And he bought in Lacazette, blank. Soyuncu, blank. Madison, blank.
Oh, my God. That's a 25-30-point swing.
Yes. It's not great, is it? Yeah. And Boris Bodega didn't do much better. He took Aubameyang and Abraham out and bought in Vardy and Lacazette. He captained one of them. Oh, it was Lacazette.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the roughs. They're pretty bad, aren't they? They were particularly bad this week.
Someone had a good week.
Sleuths. Yeah, we've got a couple of not many people had a good week, but a couple. So John X 023, just nice solid -4. Wilson and Tammy Abraham out for Jimenez and Ings. Nice. Hit repaid. Matt Burrow, he bought in Van Dijk a couple of weeks ago, played him, didn't bench him this time, and bought in Zaha this week. And he put £5 on Van Dijk to score a brace against Brighton and won 500 quid.
Yeah, so it was 100 to 1. He emailed us about it, and it was quite incredible. I think he had really good odds on Van Dijk just scoring, and he thought, no, I'm gonna bet a fiver on
100 to 1
on a brace.
Nice.
Okay, well done,
That's
Matt.
a good
one. And the final one. So this one. I wasn't sure if this is a hit or a rough. I couldn't work out the maths, but he took a -16. So in my mind, if you take a -16 and you come out of it a little bit credible, then you've probably had a smooth week. Yeah. So he got rid of Aubameyang.
Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. And he got rid of Mount.
Okay.
And he got rid of Daniel James. Okay. And he got rid of Chambers.
Okay.
And he got rid of Roberto.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he bought in. Yeah, he bought in Zaha, which was good. Ooh. He bought in Son, which was good. He bought in Tomori, and he bought in, for some reason, he bought in the West Ham goalkeeper. The one that.
What, Alvin Martin's son?
Yeah.
I only just heard of him this weekend. I didn't even know he had a son.
But he did bench him.
Oh.
Martin. But he did bringing in a goalkeeper who hadn't played before he keeps a clean sheet against Chelsea was
one of the players of the week. You know, a great performance in goal. No one had ever heard of him. Getting him in before that, this guy. Hang on a minute, we got to get his details afterwards because this guy's a soothsayer.
He's a magician.
A witch, whatever. He's something.
Kind of, but guess who he bought in for Aubameyang?
Oh, hang on, who? Harry
You
Kane?
will never guess. No, he bought in Tammy Abraham,
What?
presumably before he got injured.
Before he got injured.
Oh, right,
Oh,
yeah.
Presumably.
Yeah.
But to be fair, that team now looks a lot better than it did
Yeah.
before with those changes.
That's what I mean. So 38 points overall finish up on, which after the hit, which isn't a great score, but yeah, in much better place. And there's other people who got around 40,
And also,
45 points.
I feel that when you make an error like that, or you make an early transfer and then the player gets injured or something like that, then it does make you sort of justifies a hit. And then, as I've discovered many times before, these hits can get a bit moreish. I know you take another.
Yeah, I think that's it. You just kind of think, oh, screw it, I'm just going to go mad and bring everyone in.
Yeah.
I've already messed up once, I might as well go the whole hog. Yeah.
Almost sweet 16 for him in the hit department. Let's move on to the player, the team, and the talking point that we've had loads of community questions on. So I'll start with the player that we've had lots of questions on. And here he is. Well, here's his back anyway. It's Wilfried Zaha. As a Brighton fan, my arch nemesis. He scores horrible goals against Brighton, but he's good and he's cheap and he's got form and he's got fixtures, and that's why no wonder so many people are interested in him. And I believe Sam is in your side at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, he is. He's one of my transfers in this week. I very, very nearly bought in Zaha 2 weeks ago. When I bought in Tielemans, and in the end, Tielemans won out because Palace had Liverpool next, and Leicester had a really nice bunch of fixtures. And I was like, right, I'll go with Tielemans then.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on Zaha and see how we are after the Liverpool game. As it's gone in those 2 weeks, Tielemans has done absolutely nothing. I think he's had like one touch inside the box or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Zaha has been brilliant, quite frankly. So I did that move last night just on the back of being thoroughly annoyed with Tielemans. I was like, you can go, and I'll have Zaha instead.
Tielemans for a talisman, and quite wise. We've had some questions here about him. The fish, among many others. Can you discuss Zaha? Well, we've just been discussing him a little bit there, so more on that. And his great form of fixtures. Is he a perfect Mount replacement? And Dr. Mantis Toboggan, what a great name. Should we look at a Palace defender too? So he's branching out. Guita, Van Arnholt, Kelly, some of the names he mentions there. So, I'm going to go back to you, Sam, there. So we know what you think about Zaha, that he is a perfect replacement for Tielemans. Do you think he's a good replacement for those who have Mount as well? And what about Palace in general? Are you tempted to branch out and a bit more Palace in your team?
Yeah, I am. I think Zaha is a great replacement for any of your problematic midfielders, to be honest. Mount is one of them. He just looks really good to me. He's on form. The Palace, they sit second in the fixture ticker, just behind Sheffield United. So I think in terms of the fixtures, they're great. The form is there. We all know that Zaha wanted out of Palace in the summer, and I think it took him a while to kind of bed back into the team and to get back involved in that kind of squad mentality again. But now that he is and he seems to be settled, he seems to be the go-to guy. Lee keeps talking about how, it's also the January transfer window coming up, and if he does want to move away from Palace, then this would be a good opportunity to kind of show what he's made of to prospective buyers. So from an FPL point of view, it might be a nice time for us to own him. I think in terms of the defence, Palace at the beginning of the season, they were the best defence in the league for the first few game weeks. And obviously Martin Kelly now looks like he's going to be nailed on while Ward is injured. So he's a nice cheap option. Patrick Van Aanholt has obviously got FPL pedigree. It's going to cost you that little bit more money though, so I'd probably go Kelly or go for the goalkeeper. But even then, the goalkeeper, I think he's 5, so there's still some better, in my opinion, cheaper options like Henderson at Sheffield United. But I do really like Kelly. I think he could be a really nice pick.
Yeah, I think so too. And Patrick Van Aanholt, now there's over the years, a couple of players have really helped me as differentials. One was as his main man Dele Alli from last week, and another is Patrick Van Aanholt, because Van Aanholt is that rare breed of defender where he can get double-digit score, and it's not like oh wow, oh my god, party time. It's like, well, he's just a bit blasé. That's what he does. So, and that's the kind of the player. So yeah, I can definitely see why people are doing that. As what do you think? Firstly, Zaha, and then secondly, any other Palace assets appeal. While you're talking, I'll just put up on the screen their fixtures. This is probably why we're talking about them. Bournemouth, Watford, Brighton, Newcastle, West Ham, Southampton, Norwich, right up till game week 21. That is very nice. What do you think of Zaha and the rest of the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like Zaha, like you said, just mainly because of the Brighton thing. And I've always found him a little bit to be like ridiculously talented player, but never really seems to do that well, sort of fantasy wise. And I think last season he was like a 7 million striker, wasn't he? And he's been reclassified this year. His price now down to 6.6. And I think that the midfield kind of positioning of him definitely boosts his appeal, because he's not really a midfielder, is he? He plays quite wide, but he kind of interchanges a bit with whoever's up front, and he's the best player Crystal Palace have got by a country mile. So if you think Palace are going to do well over this run, then it's a pretty easy decision to get him. You're not really going to consider anyone else unless they're you, Joe, and they're going to get Milivojevic in for his penalties.
Another great differential asset.
Yeah, maybe. He's not really a player that I'm looking at, but I think if you've got someone like Tielemans, then I think you probably are getting a bit, itchy trigger finger to get rid of him, because he's just not really performing, and the fixture turned so nicely for Zaha. I mean, stats wise, I don't know if you got his stats there, Joe, but they didn't scream massively exciting to me. His heat map is, in the last game, didn't scream particularly exciting to me. He is playing really wide. He is, he's probably not getting into the box as much. He's not having as many shots, I think, as I'd like to see him have recently. Sort of quite a few penalty area touches, that kind of thing. If you've got Mason Mount and you don't think he's going to play, or you're worried about rotation stuff, then the best thing about Zaha is you're going to get 90 minutes from him, because Palace need him. If they're going to have a decent season, that he's going to play, every game. So there's quite a few pros of having him. He's just not really a player that I particularly like, because he can just go long stretches, blanking, and then suddenly have a decent run. That doesn't help anyone, but I don't know. I'm not a massive fan, but I can see why people would.
I'm a fixtures person, and I look at those fixtures and I think, great. I'm a talisman person. He is Palace's main man. I'm also a follower of current affairs, and know full well that he always wants to go somewhere else. And then it doesn't happen by the end of January. Then he gets a big strop on and he's rubbish, and then he sort of lightens up again towards the end of the season again. How many times have people got him in? That game week 36, 7, 38 is when he's starting to think, transfer time. And that's the time you want to get Zaha in. You don't want him after he's been sitting crying his eyes out in the car park with Berahino or whoever else is there, and going, please sign me, someone. But he's got to stay with Palace, so hard luck. And
because they valued him at like £80 million, and he's definitely not worth that much.
He's not. So he is what he is, and he's I think he's good value at the moment. And we talked about some of those stats. So in terms of stats, last 4 game weeks, he's had 8 shots. Now that's not a lot. And he's had 2 goals, and he's had 2 shots on target. So for regression fans, that's not great news for Zaha. So underlying stats wise, in the past, not so great. Going ahead with those great fixtures coming up, I think he's got room for improvement there, and he is still having the most shots of any other Palace asset. You mentioned Milivojevic. He does intrigue me. 17 corners, 22 crosses. So if we think there's assist potential there, and of course we know his penalty potential, I think he is a good differential, good intriguing differential there. And talking about I've already mentioned about the defence. I think Patrick Van Aanholt is a great option to raise up the rankings, and I think he'll do really well with clean sheets, because as Sam pointed out at the beginning of the season, Palace are actually quite good for clean sheets. I think all over. I think I mentioned before in a couple of Scoutcasts ago how Crystal Palace were the infuriating glue that unlocks the winter fixture schedule, and they do, because they're one of the few teams that have got great fixtures all the way through. Some are good up until game week 17-18, some are good 18 to 21, but Palace are the only ones really that have got that great run. So you can get them in now and just, I don't know, go and have some alcohol and mince pies and all those things over Christmas, and don't worry about it, because you haven't got to move them out. And so
they can get you through the Liverpool blank as well.
Exactly, yeah, and this is I think they're good options to get. I also pointed out on last Breakfast Club that I was very keen on Zaha, and my proposed moves are doing nothing this week. Gameweek 16, Mount and Tielemans, possibly Mount and Tielemans, to Zaha and Grealish. Get in early on Grealish. I say early as in Gameweek 18 is when Villa's fixtures become much better.
Don't steal my Grealish, Joe.
And also, we mentioned young Alvin Martin's son, David, isn't it? I've got Nick Pope and Henderson. So Henderson's just going to play in goal every week. Nick Pope's he's got basically 0.6 being used up, doing nothing. I might as well get West Ham. Fabianski's not been back for a while. Martin's definitely going to be the backup. We can't imagine they're going to bring Roberto back.
No chance.
So I think for Christmas at least, for all the way into January, I'm definitely going to have a playable backup goalkeeper who weirdly is incredible. Even though I've never heard of him before. So yeah, there's Palace and there's Zaha. We've got a team that everyone's talking about. We've spoken a bit about them before last week, but there's been some new developments. And I say developments, I mean goals. There's been more goals. So we know what they're about now. Sam, over to you, because you're a fan. Who are we talking about?
I am indeed. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Spurs. Of course we are if I'm on. We're always going to talk about Spurs if I'm here. I think, a couple of weeks ago we were in the Spurs kind of quagmire, I guess, where nobody was really looking at their assets. Move us on a couple of game weeks and 3 games for Spurs and 3 victories for Mourinho, including a Champions League win. And suddenly all of their assets are back on the radar again. Now, when we're looking at the Spurs assets, there's a couple that kind of spring to mind out of the midfield people are obviously talking about. And as pointed out with his differential pick last week, obviously Dele Alli being kind of the main man of those guys, but also Son, a bit of Aurier love as well coming up. Which has kind of come a bit out of nowhere really since Mourinho arrived. So yeah, lots of kind of pondering to do on Spurs and some interesting mix of games coming up with United next and then Burnley and then a trip to Chelsea. So 2 Mourinho derbies coming up. So some kind of mixed fixtures, but then we've seen a bit of a change in style from Spurs as well, which from a Spurs point of view, as a Spurs fan, it's really interesting to note that Toby Alderweireld has been sending the ball quite long during the games, which is really fascinating for me as a Spurs fan because we've been playing out from the back for the last 5 years under Pochettino. And suddenly in the last couple of games, we've seen Toby launching the ball out of the back up to the likes of Ali and Son, which obviously then makes him a bit more of an FPL asset too. So there's lots of different kind of options out there now, and it's working out which one you go to. So obviously we've had a lot of questions then. So FPL DC talking about, is Ali the real deal? As you obviously think he is, because you had him as your differential last week.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably just go back to last episode and listen to my take on Ali. But, I just think he's just key to everything I think Mourinho is going to try and to bring to Spurs. He's going to be the kind of creative link man who he's going to kind of expect to, set things up, get goals, get assists. He's more than capable of doing it. He's more than capable of hitting double digits in goals and assists. He's done it for a number of seasons, and from what I've seen so far, he looks like he's really thriving under the new system that Mourinho's playing. I just think he's by far the best option to go for out of all of them. I just think Kane is just a complete no-go, just because of how expensive he is. The fact he's just playing too deep. I just cannot understand why Mourinho is still letting him play so deep and not just wanting him to be like a proper number 9, like just in the box all the time. It just seems like that is his game now, and I just don't think it's particularly going to change. So until I see him getting more in the box more and having more penalty area touches, I'm just not interested in him. I kind of wrote Son off last week. I kind of thought maybe he would be pushed out wide a bit too much and might not sort of be the attacking force that we've seen when he's been under Pochettino and almost playing as a second striker. But he was receiving the ball a lot more centrally against Bournemouth, and I think if he carries on doing that, it isn't kind of shifted out to the wing, then he's a really strong option. But again, he's nearly 10 million, and Spurs' fixtures just aren't that great.
They're mixed.
Mixed, yeah. I think Boxing Day they turn really nice. So
they do.
Yeah, so I'll be looking at getting someone in then. But I think if you are looking to sort of take advantage of the mixed run until then, Ali at 8.4 just seems such a good price, and I'm sure when it gets to Boxing Day, he's going to be sort of 9 million. You're going to make money on him as well. So to me, he's the standout pick in the Spurs team still. Nothing's really changed from last week, really.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I think I've had Kane since the beginning of the season, and I'm still kind of holding him. And Joe, I know you've got him too now. So it's interesting. I mean, are you thinking about making that Kane to Ali switch, or are you going to stick with Kane?
Well, I think just got Kane in, so give him a chance. I got him in because I looked at those immediate fixtures up to Boxing Day, and they look sort of Tottenham winnable, but possibly not huge haul. But nevertheless, it's that penalty time. And I thought the penalties and the fact that Mourinho may play things slightly differently in those games, especially against his old club, Manchester United, I just felt that it could be the Harry Kane time. And also I like Harry Kane for the same reason as has got Aubameyang. It's that it's that price point that's really nice and easy to move on. So I do have in mind I would like Harry Kane to get me some points and be the guy that takes me from Boxing Day through to the end of that festive period. But I have in mind then, if he clearly is still that central defensive midfield guy, then I can easily move, even with price rises, price falls. I've got about $1 million to spare by getting Rashford in for him, and then moving Tielemans to Ali, or whoever I get in for Tielemans to Ali, and that can be done if I feel that Ali is the one to get then. I just think, I've been at Christmas with Harry Kane for so long, and it doesn't bother me too much it does bother me where he plays. I'll rephrase that. It doesn't bother me too much that he appears that he's not playing, because I watched the highlights of that game against Bournemouth, and I saw a cast iron assist for Son that Son fluffed. I saw a shot at the goalkeeper that on another day might have gone in. And I saw another shot of Harry Kane's. And if we look in the Mourinho, look at the stats. So Ali's top of the tree was 7 goal attempts in the last 2 game weeks. 5 of them in the box and 3 of them on target. These are really good stats. That's what you want. But Harry Kane's just behind. So as was talking about, there's not much in the penalty box. And I think when we watch the highlights, because when you listen to when you watch the full matches or go to the matches like Sam does, I want to get that attitude about Kane. Is he back, or is it just the highlights are showing him too far back? Because he's had 6 goal attempts, of which 4 are inside the box in the last 2 weeks, and he's scored 3 goals in all competitions for Spurs. So he's got goals in him. 3 goals in the last 2 weeks, so under the Mourinho era. So that includes Europe as well. And 3 of his shots are on target. So he's doing the right things. He's got it there, and as a keen follower of underlying stats with top strikers, I've noticed when Harry Kane's figures start to go up, so too do the goals.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think for me as a Spurs fan, watching all the games, going to a lot of the games, I don't necessarily see this dropping deep stuff. Definitely under Pochettino, he was very deep. Since Mourinho's arrived, it has been different. Yeah. There are times when he drops deep, but those times tend to be towards the end of games when we've given away 2 silly goals. And then he gets back to help the team defend because he's the captain and that's what he does.
And that pass to Son, for example, it was just by the halfway line. Yeah. But even when he was playing deep, he almost got an assist.
Yeah, so exactly.
That'll do.
And yesterday I was very much on right, that's it, I've had enough, I'm going to get rid of Kane and just bring in Ali. And overnight I've kind of pondered on it. It's a hit for me to do that. It's a -4 and I look at this Manchester United game next and I think that has got Harry Kane goal written all over it for me. So I'll probably roll my transfer and do it at the weekend if he does nothing against Manchester United, and bring Ali in for the Burnley game, because I just kind of feel like Manchester United away, that is more of a Harry Kane goal than it is a Dele Alli goal. It seems to me from a Spurs point of view.
It's the Harry Derby. It's Harry Kane v Harry Maguire. Who's going to win?
Yeah.
God.
It's not. I mean, I don't think it's going to be Harry Maguire on current form.
I don't think so. We did have another question from Internal Error and lots of other people talking about the Spurs double up. So obviously, while we're talking about this, do we think there's scope then to be having the likes of Kane and Ali, or probably more likely Ali and Son, or do we go a bit rogue and do we suggests that maybe Mourinho might sort the defence out, and could we go with Aurier or one of the defenders, Kasinga maybe? As you don't
Oh my God, Spurs double up? No. No. I mean, defensively, like they're still conceding way too many goals, I think. I mean, Aurier, what is he? Aurier now 5 million or something. I mean, he seems decent because he's playing really attacking, and Maria's getting him to play, quite far forward. So you've always got the chance of attacking returns. Alderweireld as well. You mentioned playing a lot more direct, so could potentially get some things. I just find it a bit too much wishful thinking.
It's a punt, isn't it? It's a bit of a punt and get some attacking returns.
I think so, yeah. And in terms of the double up, the trouble is they're still really. I mean, even Ali at 8.4, I think is a good price for him, but it's still quite a big chunk of your budget. If you're adding that to a Son or a Kane or someone like that, then that's a lot of money tied up in Spurs. And like we've said, the fixtures aren't that good, I don't think, until
post 18. Would you do it then?
It depends. I mean, if Spurs come out of this sort of mixed period, carry on picking up points, carry on scoring goals, then they could potentially be an option. I just can't imagine ever getting Kane. I mean, a question for you, Sam. Do you think Kane's going to get 20 goals this season?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think under Pochettino, I didn't. Because as you were saying, he was very, very deep. He was always tracking back. I nearly got him out a few times, and then international breaks kept saving him because he kept scoring goals for England. And I was kind of like, well, if Spurs can sort their lives out, he'll score goals. But under Mourinho, I see a different Harry Kane. He is staying further up the field. All right, he drops deeper when we look like we're about to throw a game away. But I'm seeing a bit more kind of aggression from him, but also from the rest of the team, and that can only bode well for Kane, in my opinion. So yeah, I do think he'll be up thereabouts around the 20 goals this season. Yeah.
So I mean, if you think he's going to get 20 goals this season, then I think that period over Boxing Day onwards is going to be the time when you're going to expect him to really hit a couple. If he's going to get anywhere near the Golden Boot, 20 goals this season, he's got to score in those games. So that's the time to kind of bring him in.
I mean, I just wish Harry Kane was the kind of player that would score back-to-back hat-tricks over the busy festive period. Oh, wait a minute, he is that Harry Kane. So we know he's got it in him. Worth a gamble.
Well, it's talk of the injury, isn't it? People are saying the injury's kind of affected his kind of desire to really sort of take players on and get into the box, because is it in his mind a bit that he's just going to get
lucky he's against a bunch of rubbish teams coming up.
Well,
I love the fact as your mind's been blown and you're struggling because you're still like Harry Kane plays defensive midfielder, and then Sam, who physically watches the matches, goes to them, it's going, oh no, he doesn't, he's playing further. And you're going,
well, little plug for the members area. I looked at before I came in, I thought I'd just check Harry Kane out this week just to compare it to last week.
Him, don't you, Az? That's what it
is. I can't resist it clearly.
Love him.
But like his heat map is still too close to the halfway line for me. In terms of the touches he's receiving, I mean I admit I didn't watch the Spurs match, but purely looking at that, I mean, you compare that chart to someone like Jamie Vardy or even someone like Martial, like where they're getting the ball is in such dangerous places, whereas Kane's just don't strike me as someone who is going to get massive hauls in him. I might be wrong, but I'm standing by it.
I'm if I'm wrong, I've got my money where my mouth is there. I've got 10.9 worth of Harry Kane to deal with.
It's a lot of Harry Kane.
But it's a lot of Harry Kane to deal with. But I think I can move him on to whoever, really. But yeah, I don't know. It's the prospect of it coming up, and it's just that thing over Christmas, and he's potentially a captaincy option as well. I'm looking at Gameweek 18. Just to see what condition Spurs are in by then, and see what condition he's in, and there's a possibility there, definitely.
Why didn't you captain him this week?
Why didn't I captain him? Because I was utterly convinced Mane was going to slaughter Brighton.
Yeah, so was I, to be fair.
But why didn't I captain Jamie Vardy either? Because I thought Everton might put up a bit of a fight, and they did indeed for a little while. They couldn't do a West Ham and do it for the full 90 minutes, but at least they gave it a go. And on another day, Mane would have got a haul. But yeah, so that's the thing. I just thought Mane was better. But yeah, Kane was in the mix. Definitely. And he's got a great record against Bournemouth. But yeah. So have Spurs in general, really. So as we see,
Geralt of Rivia on the chat calls him a nostalgia pick.
I just want to go.
I agree.
It's not
It's
a nostalgia
heartbreaking,
pick.
that kind of talk.
Geralt of Riviera. He sounds like he's in Game of Thrones, and he's
Geralt of Rivia. He's from The Witcher, Joe. Come on.
The Witcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds
coming soon to Netflix.
On the not in any way nostalgic. So
you're too old for The Witcher, Joe.
I'm too old. No, I will watch The Witcher when it's on. With what the kids watch on the newfangled Netflix thing. But before we move on to our talking point, which Az can take charge of, they mentioned about the double up as well, and I am tempted by, if Harry Kane is doing well and possibly how my midfield's working out, I would be tempted by Ali Kane double up, because if they are scoring lots of goals and they are playing rubbish teams, I want the two guys who are up front for them, and that's the number 9 and the number 10.
I love it.
Dele Alli, Harry Kane.
I'm all about this.
I've had Ali and Ericsson before.
I'm out lumbered here, aren't I?
Son and Ericsson before. The midfield or whatever, the attacking double up of Spurs is not something I have sleepless nights over. It's something I will happily walk into, buy a drink for, and walk out arm in arm with forever. So I'm happy with that.
And a load of fantasy points to boot.
Fantasy points to boot, yes. Thank you for saving my tortured analogy of walking to a bar with Spurs midfielders. Let's move on to the talking point. Christmas rotation and game week 15 rotation in particular is on the bill. So what are we talking about there?
Yeah, so we all know there's midweek games. So tomorrow on Wednesday, which would be nice, and then another game on Saturday. So this is just the best period of the season, really, isn't it? It's just my poor girlfriend sits there just like, oh my God, there's another match. Tonight it's like, yeah, keep them coming. So yeah, all very exciting. So we've got 3 games this week, 4 within 10 days for anyone in Europe. Sam has got a strong bench, as I mentioned earlier. So, is she going to have to use it? Are people going to have to sort of dip in and out of the benches? I hope not, because I've got Saka. So I'm not going to get any points from him. But, maybe Martin Kelly can come in, who we talked about earlier, and other places like that. So, there's plenty of cheap options that people got on the bench, like Rico, Kelly, and who might be able to do a job. So that's good. So Miguel Sanchez says, do we overthink rotation this time of the year? Is it even worth upgrading bench fodder like your mate Dendonka, Joe, when the chances are we probably won't even use them? My heart goes Salalalala, excellent name. He says there will be rotation. So he's a lot more confident that there's going to be some team changes. He says it makes sense to get some top bench options like Muse, 5 million. Is a benching headache really a bad thing? Oh, this is all aimed at you, Sam.
It's all mine.
This is all you. And Josh says, how much should we factor in the schedule? For example, could Leicester rotate this week with a rare midweek match for the Foxes? So I think we got some comments from Rogers earlier who did seem to suggest there might be a bit of jiggery-pokery going on. To me, I think the biggest risk is Chelsea. So people who've got Mount, Pulisic, Willian, who we all thought was kind of the most secure one, he missed out. We all thought Batshuayi was going to be sort of first choice striker with Abraham out, and Giroud played. So you bench Kante, like he's not afraid to kind of make some sort of pretty big decisions, which is kind of ironic because he's been playing kind of the strongest team, each week, and everyone's like, oh, that Frank, he's brilliant. He just plays his best team every week, and then this week he just went rogue and played a load of. Giroud playing. It's like
I came from nowhere.
Absolutely no. He's been bringing on sort of Batshuayi for like 20 minutes, sort of every match to kind of keep him fresh, and then he's like, no, we don't need you to say we'll use this guy who hasn't played a single minute all season. I thought that was weird. So let's go straight to Sam, because Sam, you play the game a little bit differently to sort of me and Joe, in that you like to have options in your team, which I believe has cost you some points this season.
Yeah, I don't normally I play it very similar to how you and Joe do. But this season, because of all of these cheap defenders, the likes of Lundstrom and Rico and Tamori, they freed up so much additional money in my team that suddenly I found myself with lots of money for my midfield and my strike force. And then I'm a bit like, well, I don't want to leave it sat in the bank. I might as well invest it in somebody. So I don't have a really, really cheap midfielder, and I don't have a cheap striker at all. I have Abraham, I have Vardy, and I have Kane. So in terms of benching options, I have a headache every single week because I just don't have 3 players that I'm going to definitely leave on my bench. which means that I'm always ending up with a ridiculous amount of points sitting on my bench. I think so far this season I've benched 176 points in the first 14 game weeks, which is ludicrous.
In comparison, I thought I'd benched quite a lot, and I've benched probably around 75, 80. I think I worked it out earlier.
I'm in the middle with about 120 points, and I thought,
which is mad.
I mean, that's a lot.
It's still a lot. And you think, I'm at 14k now. Had I not benched 170 odd points, where would I be?
Well, you'd be number one.
Probably winning the thing. I think, so for me, it's brilliant, but it's been giving me a bit of a headache. Now, over Christmas, I think it might come to my advantage, really, because suddenly I do think there's going to be rotation. As says, I think, Chelsea are primed for it. There's a few clubs up there that I think, I don't see it from Leicester necessarily as much because of where they are in the league and that push for, they're in the title race, so they're not going to bench the likes of Vardy, you can't think. But the midfield, the likes of Perez and Tielemans, they could easily get benched. So you do need to have a decent bench, I think, to get you through that Christmas period, because there will be players that just suddenly miss a game.
So I am a little bit less sure on that. I think I agree a little bit more with the person who said it's a bit overrated. The trouble is that there is going to be rotation, like absolutely. Players are going to miss out on games, but are players going to miss out 90 minutes of a game? That's the question. Because to me, if Pulisic misses out, he's still going to get 25 minutes. Yeah, it's quite rare for like these kind of really key players to miss a full game unless the team thinks really comfortable in the match. If they're like 4 or 5-0 up, then okay, you might not need to bring them on. Or if you're like Man City, you might decide not to bring them on because you've got great players. But a lot of these teams, the replacements aren't really that good, or they're kind of like they're not in the team for a reason. So when they're kind of chasing a game, or when they're sort of narrowly winning a game or something like that, then it makes sense to bring on your more informed, better players. So if it's if you've got a strong bench and you're kind of these players are missing out, and then you get your bench players on, then that's great. But if these players are getting 10, 15 minutes, then your bench is irrelevant.
That's true.
Anyway, so
frustrating.
And yeah, the most frustrating. I mean, players like Mount, I think last week, they cost people loads of points off the bench because they had sort of 6, 7, 8 points on the bench, and Mount comes on for 10 minutes and doesn't get anything. What do you think, Joe? Are you planning on strengthening Dendoncker?
Well, like where I am with my bench points, sort of in the middle of both of you. I'm in the middle with. I think a bench is important. I think there's going to be rotation, and there will be rotation in midweek as well. There's going to be surprises there. And there will be over Christmas. But I think the first sub is important, and the bench order is the most important thing, I think. So I think you're going to need your first sub, you're going to need your second sub occasionally, and I don't think you're really going to need your third sub much. So Dendonker's my third sub, and if someone's got like a Hanley at Norwich or someone like that, and they're a non-player, don't fret about it. You don't have to replace that person. It's very unlikely you're going to get down to your third sub, I think, if the rest of your 11's good. So, but it's more, I think, this season and last season is something that we're going to adapt to, is that the most attacking player, so if you've got, in my case, I guess the one who plays furthest forward is Dendoncker. He's not my first sub. He should be my third sub. My first sub should always be now a defender, because as Sam said, this season, how many amazing cheap defenders are there? Lundstrom, got to play him. Sionju, got to play him. Rico at Bournemouth, almost scored an incredible goal, by the way, against Spurs. And, he is a good option as well. I've got Matt Targett on my bench. Points, guess what? I've got points, 7 points sitting there on my bench. I'm happier. There's 3 things in FPL, isn't there? Getting points, having points sitting there on your bench, not even owning that player at all. And I prefer the first, obviously. The seconds will do. The third I don't want. So I'm quite happy to own them, and I'm happy. So, for example, at the moment, I've got Rico, Target, and Dendoncker. So Rico and Target are my bench guys that will come on, I hope. And then as Leicester's fixtures turn, maybe Sionju comes back onto the bench. Maybe Target goes... Well, I suspect this will happen. Target will be fielded there. So it is a bit of a mixture, really. But I don't think everyone should go absolutely mad and they've got to replace their Hanley or whatever. Unless it's like someone like I had, like Otamendi. So that's 5 million, 5.5 million. That is too much to leave on your bench every week. But if it's for 4 million or 3.9, yeah, just leave it. Don't worry about it.
I think you just kind of take, you take the 3 points or 2 points or whatever you get if a player like that comes on, and you don't really worry about it too much. I mean, you pay cheap for cheap bench players, so you can have a stronger rest of your team. I think I think someone like Cantwell at 4.6 is pretty much as good as it gets, really, for midfielders. If you're looking to save a bit of money, you're going down to 4.3, and it means you're getting in someone like, I don't know, Eleni, who's on loan to some Spanish team, or at 4.4, you're looking at getting Dendoncker. I think he's playing at centre back at the moment for Wolves. You're not expecting like massive things of them, but if you get 2-3 points off them, then you could argue that's better than zero.
I think the other thing is to, it sounds really obvious, keep an eye on team news, but this time of year, especially, if you can, just keep an eye on those little tidbits from the managers are giving you that hint at rotation, and they can give you an indication. So Lampard, for example, so we talked about Chelsea. So what's Lampard been saying? So Abraham, he's saying he'd like to see him outdoors. Well, that doesn't bode tremendously well for Abraham starting if he hasn't actually gone outdoors yet. But he said Lampard on playing Pulisic up front. We'll see. He does have an ability to run behind the line, to be sharp in central areas, which will naturally get him more goals. I'm not going to say right now if that's solution, but we will see as we go forward. So why is he saying that now? As if, is it just coincidence that Abraham might be out, that Giroud didn't really do much?
Yeah, well, surely he's been asked, hasn't he? He's been said, do you think Pulisic can play up front? And then he's said all that, and now it's like, oh, Pulisic can play up front. I don't know.
He's saying a lot for someone who's been thinking about it as well. It sounds like he's been having a think about it. And usually when someone like, say, Klopp says something like that, suddenly it's like, oh, hang on a minute, why is he talking? Why is he giving so much detail about that now? And it's just something to be aware of. So there is a possibility Pulisic could play up front. Where does Mount play? Probably the bench. But maybe Mount then plays where Pulisic should be playing, on the wing. And then, who knows? But it's something to be aware of as well. And also, as you mentioned something about Leicester and Rodgers, talking about rotation. So I've got the quote here as well. So we're going to need all the squads to fulfil the goals we want to achieve over the course of the season, said Rodgers. This is going into December. We know there is a busy schedule, especially coming to December. There's a lot of games, he says. So why is he suddenly talking about this now? And then it says it's always the toughest job as a manager when you have your squad who give you their life every day, when you're demanding such high concentration and intensity, and then you can only pick 11 players. And then he name checks some. Mark Albrighton he names. So that's a big hint. Albrighton's going to get a game at some point very soon. He's talking about Hamza, James Justin, Christian Fuchs. He's talking about the peripheral players here. So it's really hinting there that some of the players that we got in our teams are going to miss a game probably coming up in the next few weeks, possibly this midweek. Unless they haven't played midweek really before. They don't really play top flight unless it's like whatever it is, the Caribou Cup or something like that. So there's another hint there. Just things to keep aware of. And you don't want to, frighten yourself, but do, keep an eye on the Fantasy Football Scout Twitter account. Listen to what Neil says in team news videos, that kind of thing. Read the newspaper, that kind of stuff.
I think Pulisic is definitely due a benching either this week or weekend.
He's really tired as well in the weekend.
He's either due a benching or he's going to play number 9. It's going to be one of the two.
Yeah, I know. That's the lottery. That's the lottery you have. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So benching. I think we've shown that we can get a variety of points left on the bench. It's been said. People always complain about bench points. If you get it all the time, it can be frustrating. But personally, I don't mind it too much. I'm sort of with Sam with that. I don't mind having points on my bench because at least I can own them.
Yeah. So
I've got Matt Target's points on the bench. Well, that's fine. I've basically got a Game Week 18 transfer out of the way. He's ready there. I got Sionju in Game Week 5. I didn't want to play him until Game Week 8, but I was quite happy. I think it was Game Week 8 or 9, one of those two. I got him in, but I was just happy that he's there. Yes, he might have got me some points on the bench, but he's sort of a transfer I don't need to make down the line. I can concentrate on other things, possibly stupid things like getting Harry Kane in, but nevertheless I can do that.
That's not stupid, Joe. That's brilliant.
Not. It's brilliant. It's genius. it's 2016 style genius possibly, but it's still genius. Let's move on to game week 15.
Yeah, swiftly.
Let's move on to game week 15. Now, going into game week 14, on the captaincy video and podcast, David said, I said anyway, everyone's going to get points, don't worry about it. Actually, one of my worst game weeks of the season. No one I wanted got a point. Game week 15, there's some tough fixtures ahead. But a good place to start with these types of fixtures is thought of rotation and the thought of some surprises as well, and that's a good chance to have a look at differentials. Here we pick a 5% or below owned player that can help you rocket up the rankings over the next 4 game weeks. As said earlier, Az picked Dele Alli, well done, the previous week. Tom Freeman picked Matt Doherty, who also scored this week. 3 weeks ago, Lee picked Danny Ings, who scored again this week.
Wow.
So Sam, no pressure.
Yeah.
Who's your differential pick for the next 4 game weeks?
Oh, I really feel the pressure, because if this goes badly, I am going to get it in the neck from Lee all week, aren't I? Okay, so maybe I'm going to go a bit rogue, but I'm going to go with an old FPL, kind of tried and tested player from a couple of seasons ago. But I'm going to go
a nostalgia pick, like Kane.
Yeah, a nostalgia pick, yes. I'm going to go with James Ward-Prowse at Southampton. So it's going to cost you 5.8 million. Owned by 1.3%, so fits your differential criteria, has been quietly ticking over the points. And I think, like Danny Ings, because Southampton have been playing quite poorly, he's gone right under the radar in terms of people noticing him. But game week 11, he got 9. Game week 12, he blanked. 13, he got 5. And then obviously this week in 14, he got 9 again. So ticking over the points nicely. Southampton have got lovely fixtures for the next sort of 4 game weeks. So I think he could do really well. Particularly, obviously, he's going to be the one putting in a lot of those balls to Danny Ings, so who I expect to continue to do well. So I'm going to kind of ride on these coattails a little bit by picking a midfielder that's going to put the balls into his Danny Ings. But I do think he could do really well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good pick as well. Looking at the fixtures here, so Norwich, Newcastle, West Ham and Aston Villa coming up game weeks 15 to 18. That is bang on the next 4 game weeks. All good scoreable fixtures for Danny Ings. Danny Ings is obviously, his legs are made of glass, so at some point he's not going to play. But Ward-Prowse is not made of glass, so he's going to, I would imagine, play all the time. He's on penalties, I believe.
And set pieces, yeah.
And all set pieces. He threatens to break out every season to be the absolute star. He never quite does it, but he does do it for a 4-week period every now and again. Yeah. And I think this is the time. This is Ward-Prowse time. So yeah,
let's hope so.
I agree. If you'd have said that, in another 4-week batch when the fixtures are a bit mixed, I'd have said, hang on. But yeah, this is the time.
This is the time. If you're going to do it, this is the time to bring him in.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've always found the kind of the 6 million midfielder has always been quite important for me in my own teams in terms of getting the kind of structure and shape that I like. So I'm a bit like you, Joe. I like Grealish. I think around the same price, 5.8, 5.9. He's probably the one that I'd pick sort of over Ward-Prowse. But if you are looking at fixtures, I don't think you can do much better than Ward-Prowse. And having someone who just takes everything, like you kind of are backing a player who can just kind of get an assist or a goal out of nothing. Just a dodgy foul on the edge of the penalty area, he steps up and suddenly you've got some points. So yeah, I think over a couple of games, he's got 3 goals in 4 games. I can't see why he wouldn't get more points in the next 4. So yeah, I'm in.
I was just going to add as well with the game week 15, because there will be rotation. I'm convinced of it, because there's so many tight games coming thick and fast. Because there'll be players that perhaps aren't used to the rest of their team. I just think this is the time you want to bet on those top players like Ward-Prowse, and I'm going to say Milivojevic as well, although his ownership is higher than 5%, I believe. But it's those types of players you want.
You are the only one championing Milivojevic. I swear every week I come on and you manage to get him in somehow.
Sorry if 10 penalties a year is not good enough, Who knows?
Wait till Zaha goes, then he's gonna have nothing.
But it's that kind of player you want, though. You want someone who's nailed on and is really high in those types of stats that sort of gets assists. So yeah, Alexander-Arnold is a great pick of this time of year as well, as is shown. Two amazing free kick and 2 amazing assists from set pieces. Brilliant. Let's move on to clean sheets. Looking ahead for the next 6 game week. So Az, do you want to let us know who are the best teams for clean sheet potential coming up?
So they seem quite hard to come by, and they seem to be coming in games which you wouldn't necessarily expect. I mean, I didn't expect Palace to keep a clean sheet away at Burnley, to be honest, but they did. And now they've got a pretty incredible run of games. Bournemouth struggling to score, Watford struggling to score, Brighton looking good but not getting points, and managed to get a goal against Liverpool from a direct free kick from Lewis Dunk, which has to rank as one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. But I mean, those 5 games for Palace, I mean, in terms of defence, I think they are pretty much the best you could get. Like pretty much all of those teams are finding it hard to score. So you've got to think there's going to be some clean sheets coming in those. You've then got Southampton, who great fixtures, but again, I wouldn't really back them to keep too many clean sheets. The same with Newcastle, without Lascelles as well. The fixtures are just so good, but I wouldn't be bringing in any of their defensive players. The one I do like from Newcastle is the right back Willems, who scored against City. So you get a bit more from him because he's very attacking, and he I mean, the fixtures are great, and he looks
and
a
in
pretty solid option.
in the battle of the Willems in the Premier League, he's the best one. Apart from your favourite, Williams,
the United defender.
Yeah, no, I still think the Newcastle Williams is the winner of the Williams League.
Yeah, definitely the top Williams. So then, I mean, 4th down the list, you've got Sheffield United, and I mean, we're going to talk about my team in a minute because I'm currently the only person in the world. Well, I think me and Andy are just the only people in the world who don't own a certain John Lundstram. But you look at the next 4 or 5 games for Sheffield United, you think they're just definitely going to keep 1 or 2 or 3 clean sheets in that. So I think a Sheffield United defender looks key, and I think maybe even a double up with Henderson or with someone like O'Connell or Basham or something like that. Could be pretty good over this period. You've then got Norwich. No one's getting a Norwich defender, let's be honest. Aston Villa, you've got Matt Targett. You're probably the only one with a Aston Villa defender.
But then look at from game week 8. Well, actually, look at it from game week 17 onwards.
Game week 17, Sheffield United, Southampton, Norwich. I don't envy your Matt Targett, to be honest, Joe.
Well,
but you never know.
I tell you what, there's 1,000 hipsters in the East End now looking like twirling their big moustaches, eating their
how dare he
eating their crazy cereal and thinking, wow, that guy with Target he's one of us.
Yeah. Well, that sums you up all this season, Joe. You're just completely off the grid. I just can't get a hand on you. Harry Kane and Target, and can't handle it.
It's a crazy hipster.
Yeah, I know. and the last on the list is Brighton. It's obviously away at Arsenal this week, not great. But then some quite nice home games against Wolves, Sheffield United, Bournemouth. The Palace game is hard to call. You never know what's going to happen in that game. But I think someone like Montoya at right back or right wing back, he has been putting lots of crosses in all season. Lewis Dunk now taking direct free kicks. I mean, why not? It's just if you want a bit of excitement in your life, then Lewis Dunk is the unlikely man. I don't really think we're that good defensively, so I wouldn't be backing on too many clean sheets. But Dunk and Montoya, I think you could do worse for the money. They're cheap, and if you're getting rid of someone like Dendoncker or someone, or looking for a decent bench option, then I think one of those two might do the job. So yeah, I mean, Sheffield United and Palace stand out to me in those.
Yeah, all good ones there. Let's move on to our plans in game week 15. Sam, you go first. What are your plans? Any transfers planned? Transfers already made, and who are you captaining?
Yeah, so I've got 2 free transfers, or I had 2 free transfers for this week. I've used one of them doing Tielemans to Zaha that we've already talked about. My other plan involved Kane to Dele and making basically a little mini wild card and taking a -4, but actually Frank is still not giving away a lot about what's happening with Tammy Abraham, so I'm going to wait for his press conference tomorrow, see what he says. Tammy Abraham still could go this week if he's not going to play, but the rest of my team I feel is kind of quite nicely set up. I'm as was just talking about, I've had the double Sheffield defence since game week 1, which has been just unbelievably good. Like, I never anticipated that they would score me as many points as they have, but I think they were a bit of an enabler, both of them, Lundstram and Henderson, but they've been outstanding. So the rest of the team looks okay. There's a lot of home games in there and a lot of nice fixtures, so I'm fairly set that if there's a chance Abraham's going to play, I'll roll that transfer and then look at what I'm doing with Kane after this Manchester United game in midweek. But the captain's armband's just going to stay with Vardy again. That'll be 4 weeks on the bounce now that I've just captained Vardy. I can't see me moving it off of him anytime soon, to be honest.
No, it's not until Gameweek 18, isn't it? When they play City, I think. Default captain.
Former pictures are great. So he's going to keep it probably for most of Christmas.
Well, yeah.
Triple captain, anyone for Vardy?
I've had success whenever I've captained Vardy, and when I've not captained Vardy, it's not been successful. So, yeah, it's a good strategy. As your plan,
it does feel like he could be triple captain though. He feels triple captainable at the moment.
Well, yeah. I mean, as looking at your team, you've got your captaincy on Vardy. So, are you tempted by the triple captaincy? And what else? What other moves are you hatching?
Well, I mean, there's clearly you might be looking at my team and thinking, there's someone missing in that team that everyone's got. Luckily, I've planned for this, and I've actually left enough money in the bench, pot, money in the pot, whatever you call it, transfer kitty, however you want to say, for Rico to Lundstrom. So he's finally coming in this week. I don't really know how I've made it this far in the season. Well, I haven't really made it this far. That's why I've been like a million in the world for this amount of time. But yeah, I'm definitely bringing in Lundstrom this week. The games are too good to ignore. I'd love to take a punt on another Sheffield United defender, but no one can match what Lundstrom's doing from that position. So he's just a really obvious, easy transfer. It means Aubameyang stays. So I kind of said the only way I'd keep Aubameyang is if Emery got sacked and he got a couple of goals against Norwich. He did. He can stay. He can stay for a bit longer. He's got 2 good games. He's got Brighton at home and then he's got West Ham away. So I'm going to keep him for those 2, I think, now. I really don't like having McGinn in my team. He is starting to be a bit of a problem. He's quite cheap, so only 5.8, but he's just playing so deep now. And Grealish is the same price and just so advanced and looks so good and just so integral to everything Villa are doing. So I think my plans going forward are Rico to Lundstrom this week, nice and easy, and then do McGinn to Grealish in preparation for the good weeks.
Wise.
So it means bringing Grealish before Leicester and Sheffield United, which isn't ideal. But I do think with the way he's playing, he is going to probably carry on getting points.
What about your goalkeeper situation? You've got Pope and McGovern. You tempted by Henderson, no. So you're just happy with Pope against Man City?
Pope's doing all right. He's probably not. I mean, games like Crystal Palace, you'd expect him to be maybe keeping a clean sheet, but I mean, he's got back-to-back 9 points against West Ham and Watford before that. He's got 2 tough games in City and Tottenham, but then he's got Newcastle, Bournemouth, Everton, United, Villa. More than happy with him over those matches. No desire to get rid of him.
Fair enough. I'm going to go last because I'm going to do absolutely nothing. So very wisely, I've got Vardy as captain, and Kane staying, Jimenez is staying, Mane, De Bruyne. Very happy with. In fact, I'm happy with all my team. I've still got Lundstrom in there since Gameweek 1, and it's
got to pay $1 million more.
And you're going to pay $1 million more, but I mean, I'm not into money, so I don't mind by that. Tielemans and Mount are the ones are iffy. I'm going to keep them and see what happens. I've got Target and Rico on my bench, so if either of them don't play or if Mount doesn't play, I've got options there. But as I said earlier, my move will probably be game week 16. I think I'm going to do Mount and Tielemans or Mount and Pope to Jack Grealish is in my thoughts, so that's a possibility, but it's Zaha and just whatever goalkeeper, maybe the Alvin Martin's son. So go for him because Henderson's just going to be default. Like Sam was saying, the Lundstrom Henderson combo has been fantastic this season, especially when Lundstrom does well because so well owned. But when you've got Henderson adding that, it's the only way you can sort of get a green arrow out of that. Because it's just, I mean, as with Vardy too. When Vardy scored, it was interesting. I didn't captain Vardy, but I owned Vardy. And when he scored, I went from 75,000 to 88,000 in the rankings.
I hate that. Like wanting players in your team not to score because you're going to get a hit. It's horrible. Simply
not captaining Vardy. From where I am, people know about his ownership in the top 10,000 maybe or overall, but it's got to be sort of where you are in the rankings. It so happens where I am in the rankings, I'm just surrounded by loads of Vardy captains, and so basically, I've got a captain Vardy. It's a rank killer if you don't, because he's just too highly owned. But yeah, that's for me. Target goes up to first sub at the moment, just in case he can get an assist, and just in case Chelsea are rubbish, which can happen occasionally. Just before we go, I just wanted to mention the members area, a lot of the stats, the season ticker, all those types of things we've been looking at. The heat maps as well been mentioned in this episode. There is now not just you can get the membership for a season, you can get it monthly as well. So there's loads of options there. Do have a look on site at Fantasy Football Scout to get more detail about that. But for now, it's a goodbye from me.
And good night from me.
And goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.